All right, the battle of martial arts has been around since probably all martial arts has been established. And I've been a part of this conversation many times. I've been on many different sides. And today I want to talk about the differences between Taekwondo and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Taekwondo gets kind of pooped on quite a bit, and it has for many good reasons. And it usually is by the Jiu Jitsu guys, Muay Thai guys, and things like that. But does it have any use whatsoever? Well, I'm going to admit my bias from the very beginning, but I still want to talk about it today. And I have spent 34 years, somewhere around there, in Taekwondo, and in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I've spent around 15 years, somewhere around there. And so I have a bias on these two topics, and I can talk about other arts that I have trained in before. I've done some judo and a little tiny bit of kickboxing, nothing where I can, talk at a level where I'm proficient or anything like that, as far as actually doing kickboxing, right? So done a little bit. I've been involved in Krav Maga. I've been certified as an instructor many years ago as a Krav Maga instructor. I cross-trained in Kung Fu many years ago for a period of time when I was in the Army. And so I've had a great martial art experience throughout the years, and I'm very happy and blessed to say that I've done these things. It's given me great experiences, and I've got a good view of what these other arts have to offer. But let's talk about Taekwondo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu today, and how it affects your self-defense, or at least the way that I teach self-defense. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you that Taekwondo went off the rails a long time ago, and I hate that. Yes, I've spent so many years teaching it, being involved in it, but it was not what it is today when I first started it many years ago. And it was, most schools back then were fighting full contact. People don't understand that. But back in the day in Taekwondo, it was full contact. And yes, there were some interesting rules where in some schools, if you're doing more of the Olympic style, then you weren't, punching to the face. You were punching full contact to the chest, and kicking to the head and chest and things like that. Back in the old days of old school Olympic style Taekwondo was phenomenal. I mean, you got hard hits, and just because it's hard hits doesn't mean that it's real or that it's better, but it's more realistic, and that's what I like about it. So the way that I teach Taekwondo is different than most of your strip mall Taekwondo schools. And most of your Taekwondo schools will tell you that they're different. And I guess I'm one of them that's going to tell you the same thing. Hey, we're different. But we are different in what you see in other schools. So here's where I've come to. The way that we do things in our Taekwondo program is we make contact, all right? I see some of the traditional martial arts schools that don't make any contact whatsoever whenever they spar. So it's not tested. You see, that's what makes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so exciting to me, and to a lot of people. When I first started Taekwondo, you had to test yourself on the mat. You had to fight, all right? And yes, some people say, well, it's a match. No. Back in the day, we had fights. We were literally fighting on the mat. Blood everywhere. It was what it was. You'd get mad, you'd get upset, with your training partner, and you just didn't like them, and you fought. I mean, that's how it was. And it's funny because we were talking about having integrity and self-control and all of these tenets of Taekwondo, but yet those were the things we were doing out on the mats. That's just kind of how it was back then. It was just a fighting culture. When people came in off the street to challenge Taekwondo instructors back then, the old school hardcore instructors accepted it with open arms, all right? And I've done that for years. I've done that on the Taekwondo side and the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu side. The people who train at my gym here know that it was several years ago, I kind of got into a situation with an individual that came in and challenged on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu side, and he just kept running his mouth the whole time. And what I mean by running his mouth is after he would get submitted. Well, first of all, when he came up, he said, "I want to fight you." Those were his words. "I want to fight you." Extremely disrespectful. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and roll with him real quick, try to tap him out if I can as quickly as possible, and then we can get down to work instead of all this nonsense. But again, I've come from an old school mentality to where when people challenge, you accept, and you're fighting for the honor of your gym. That's how I came up. Don't get mad at me and talk about brutish ways or whatever. But I accepted and I submitted him, and he wasn't being funny when he said this. This was not a joke. He said, "Can't do that again." Now, if he was doing that and like laughing, smiling, or something like that, okay. No, he was serious. He was very serious. I said, "Okay." And I did it again and again and again and again and again. Next thing I know, he leaves, and I talked to him afterwards. I said, "Man, that was uncalled for." I said, "That was ridiculous. This is not how you do things. I don't know where you come from or why you would think that'd be okay, but it's not." Later on, I found out that he was involved in a local fight club that was taking place out in the woods, and that he wanted to test himself against us because at the time we're the only jiu-jitsu gym in town. So I find that out later. Well, anyway, I guess he goes, and he's an adult, by the way, but he tells his father that I beat him up. And the father comes in and threatens legal action. And dang it, man. Long story short, I'll bring it back to this. I finally have decided, after speaking to my attorney, that I was fine with how that was because the guy signed a waiver. That was that. I didn't do anything to hurt him. Remember, in jiu-jitsu, you're not trying to injure your training partner, but you are trying to hurt him a little bit, right? I mean, that's what tapping out is, right? I mean, there's going to be pain. You're going to hurt a little bit. So we decided that it's best policy that if someone comes in and challenges, then if they're going to come in with that kind of energy, to just invite them to leave. And that's difficult for me as an old school martial art instructor because that's not how we did things. And I still believe that on the mat, you test yourself. And that's what I love about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But again, that's what Taekwondo used to be many, many years ago. And I have a different approach now. It's 2024. We do things a little bit differently. And we have to be a little bit careful. But still, here's my approach to that. All right. So with Jiu-Jitsu, I don't think that you should be going all out 100% every time. No one should be going 100% every time that they roll. And why do I say that? Well, have you paid attention to how, professional fighters actually fight? You think they fight all the time or train all the time at 100%? No. They've got fight camps where they prepare at high levels and things like that. But outside of that, they're not going after it 100%. And it's very difficult to learn whenever you're going things at 100%. But that doesn't mean that there's not 100% resistance. So here's what it should look like. I think you should really get after it whenever you scramble, win position. But after that, when it's time to put on the submission, that should be under extreme control. So fight to get that arm where it needs to be. And then when it's time to submit them, when it's time to finish the submission, you let it on gradually, giving them a chance to tap. That's a safe way to train in a gym environment. These are not your enemies. These are your training partners, all right? Is it going to be that way in a competition? Most of the time, not. Some competitions, they may look out for you or whatever, but you shouldn't expect that. And our folks that compete, we don't expect that, all right? So we expect that they're going to take the arm. So you better be, if they got it, you better be prepared to tap out, immediately. And then, you release whenever the referee tells you to release. That's how we do class for jiu-jitsu, but what about Taekwondo? Well, like I said, it's 2024. We've calmed it down a little bit, but we're still not playing patty cake, right? We're still not just tap, 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 but we're also not swinging for the fences either, especially with kids, teenagers, but even adults. So what does that look like? I want them to understand this. The contact that you make in my sparring environment, where you're kicking and punching, and we punch to the head like you should, and kick to the head, kick and punch to the body and things like that. We do that. But it should be enough power that when you get hit, you don't want to get hit again, right? So that means you should block. If you're just tapping, well, they're not going to respect that. They're gonna move in and hit you, and it didn't mean anything, right? There's no value in that. But if they charge in and you pop them really good, that should give them something to think about so they don't come in again, all right? Or the same way. It's not giving them this false sense of security. They're actually getting hit. But that said, I say, for me, this you can differ on this, I don't care. But for us in our martial arts school, I say moderate contact most of the time. Unless the two really want to get after it. If you two have young guys or whatever, and you just really want to bang, then man, bang away. Just have a great time. It's just fun. But everyone else, I say you should leave with the same amount of teeth that you brought in. All right, I say that all the time. So that should be the balance. Not patty cake, but leave with the same amount of teeth you brought in. So there should be some control there for sure whenever you do it. But unfortunately, what a lot of other martial arts schools have done is they don't even make contact at all, or if they do, it's tap, 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 tap with no consequences whatsoever. Or they're not teaching self-defense, like none. Like what happens with this? Like we have a rule set similar to kickboxing, but we're not, there's certain techniques that we don't throw because we don't want major injury or anything like that, but I teach them and they hit targets with them. That's our preference. You have different styles of Muay Thai, right? If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me in the comments, but if I'm not mistaken, Dutch Muay Thai, I believe, I think they don't throw elbows, if I'm not mistaken, as opposed to the traditional Thai style, but I could be wrong on that. But either way, there are different thoughts and opinions on how that should work, and that's totally fine as far as training styles are concerned, but it's still, to me, should be somewhat realistic. And I lament the fact that Taekwondo has become what it has become out there. So I used to try to police it when I was younger. Like, hey, this is Taekwondo. But after years and years of self-reflection, I don't find any use in that anymore. I say let the other gyms be what they're going to be if they don't do it my way. Because I'm sure there's got to be more hardcore gyms than mine. And I don't think our school's that hardcore. I don't think so. You tell me after what you heard me talk about. I want our people to, the people that come and train here are parents, professionals, hard workers, children, teenagers, and so on and so forth. So back to what the other gyms are doing. I've finally come to a place where I don't care. I do care some. I can't stop caring, but I care a lot less nowadays. It's just, be what you're going to be. If you're just going to teach life skills, man, that's the name of the gym that I lead. We teach life skills, right? At Life Quest Martial Arts. That's what we teach. Life skills. Things like discipline, courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, confidence, and things like that. So I teach those things, but it's not what it's all about, all right? It's a mix of all of it. I want you to get self-defense, but I also want to help you become a good person. I'm not the best person. I try to be. I work really hard to do all of those things, but I'm just as human as the next person. We're all in it together, trying to do better. I'm not preaching from the standpoint of, I'm up here on this pedestal and look at me as the best. No, we're all trying to do what's right for what it's worth. So if that's what their values are, then that's fine, but just state it that way. Because so much that people look at as self-defense is more of a dance. It's not really self-defense. So some of these other arts that exist out there, I'm not going to name them. And I've got friends that teach those things, but just call it what it is. And that's okay. Practice those things. I do believe that all martial arts, most martial arts have some self-defense value. It may be techniques that are practiced 5% of the time, but if you look at the art as a whole, at one point it was a self-defense art. It's just been watered down so much through the years. Taekwondo was, and people can argue this or whatever, but most people will agree that Taekwondo was a military style martial art whenever it was established. It has gone way off the rails when it comes to what it used to be. And so it gets a lot of crap for it. And whether that's deserved or not, well, I mean, everyone has to decide that. So I went through a period of time where I wasn't even going to teach it anymore. I just went down the BJJ route. I was competing. I was, that was my thing, was jiu-jitsu. And I was going to throw away my Taekwondo. And I had a friend that told me, John, don't do that. You spent so much time in Taekwondo, you're going to regret if you let it go. And I'm grateful that he did, because it took me a little bit of time, but eventually, I think around high purple belt, like 2 or 3 stripes within purple belt, I think is when my decision to go back to Taekwondo, like refocus on it again, changed. So I'm grateful that it happened. And so now, hey, you enjoy kicking people in the head from time to time, right? I mean, it's not all about chokes and arm bars, leg locks and whatnot. To each his own with that. If you're looking for a martial arts school that teaches self-defense, look at it and say, hey, does this look like it could be realistic? Training methods, yes. Do they actually spar? And if they spar, where's the contact? And if you want the old school, really old school, like the way we used to train, where we were beating each other up every day, those are going to be harder to find, but I'm sure they exist out there. All right. Again, we're a little bit more moderate. We don't play the patty cake, but we also don't swing for the fences, somewhere in the middle. That would be my recommendation, just because of safety and just being able to continue training for years and years. Same thing on the mat in our gym. When it's time for competition, we hit it hard. Outside of competition, we don't have a tournament coming up. I mean, we focus on getting better, and we might do some flow rolling from time to time and things like that, but we're not, hitting it hard like we would do right before competition. That's the way we do it. And if you're not competing, then, you do your thing. Anyway, I hope this helps when we're looking at the 2 martial arts of Taekwondo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and where they are and what has happened in the community in regards to self-defense. Now, I stuck a lot to Taekwondo. I'm going to do another video because this was getting too long I'll do a part 2, and I'll talk more about the self-defense aspect with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. All right? Hope you enjoyed this. If you like this kind of video, let me know. I want to do, what my thought is now is to do 1 video a week on actual technique and 1 video like this where we have a conversation. All right? Hope you got something out of it. We'll see you next time.